Calaroga Shark Media.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Hope you had a good Christmas. Did you see Aaron Rodgers name-check Dave Chappelle recently? Former NFL running back Rashard Mendenhall has suggested an all-black versus all-white bowl. Aaron Rodgers was asked about it when he was on the Pat McAfee show last week, and Aaron said, I think off the top of my head, spitballing, we need to have a draft, and it has to involve Dave Chappelle. We should have a draft because there's a couple people we're not sure which team they'd be on, so we need to have a draft. Mendenhall had started a little mini Twitter controversy when he tweeted, I'm sick of average white guys commenting on football. Y'all not even good at football. Can we please replace the Pro Bowl with an all-black versus all-white bowl so these cats can stop trying to teach me who's good at football? I'm better than your goat. Joe Koy is going to host the Golden Globe Awards. Those are on January 7th. Joe's selling out arenas, but that'll make him pop in the mainstream a little bit more like Nate Bargatze has this year. So the regular folks will get to know Joe. That is cool. He gave a statement, which is, I've stepped onto a lot of stages around the world in my career, but this one is going to be extra special. I'm so excited to be hosting the Golden Globes this year. This is the moment where I get to make my Filipino family proud. Esquire did a wonderful profile with Gary Gulman under the headline, Gary Gulman can make absolutely anything funny. They tell the story. It's November 2019. Goleman is scrolling through his phone on Twitter, and a tweet from Jason Zinnemann from the New York Times caught his attention. Zinnemann had asked, what stand-up have you liked that is about class, however you want to define it? That intrigued Gary Gulman. He realized he couldn't think of a comedian who'd built a whole act around socio-economic status. George Carlin had touched on the topic, certainly, with riffs about how the ruling class operates to keep themselves on top. Gary says, but I hadn't seen anybody who made the entire hour about class. And I thought, oh, that's it. That's a great area. And then I just started. The article discusses about how Gary is well respected in the comedy industry. I've met Gary a few times. Great guy. I tried to hire him at the place I used to work, but the boss didn't get it. The boss wasn't really that good at looking 40 yards downfield. I kind of am good at that. Oh, well. Sorry, Gary. I would have liked to have worked with you. We tried. You were there. You know. Judd Apatow said, I think every comedian would agree that Gary is better than most everybody. There's certain people you go, oh, they're on another level. Their artistry, their ambition, their willingness to try new things, how much they'll open up. No matter how many comedians there are, only a few are working at the highest level, and Gary is one of them. Ryan Hamilton, who I love, shared an apartment with Gary and a couple other roommates in New York City in the early 2010s. Ryan said, words are so special to Gary, and he really has a gift for finding just the right word that can turn a joke. Hamilton says having Gary for a roommate was inspiring because Goleman was always writing and working on his craft. The apartment effectively didn't have a living or dining room because the living room had been turned over to one of the roommates for a bedroom, but Hamilton and Goleman would stand in the kitchen in the morning and talk comedy while eating cereal. Ryan says he was constantly threatening to start a newsletter that was just for our apartment, you know, with all the big news of the day about who left what in the fridge. Seeing our apartment filtered through his comedic lens was really fun. Esquire writes, Goleman has a rare talent for making an esoteric topic funny in a broadly accessible way, but sometimes that means sitting on an idea for years until he figures out how to make it work on stage. One of his best-known bits centers on a made-up Netflix documentary about the U.S. Postal Service's effort to give every state its own 2-capital-letter abbreviation. When Goleman's fictional team of abbreviators gets stuck, they're forced to bring in a contractor, a specialist at creating contractions. Goleman said he scribbled the original idea in a notebook in 1994, but it took him until around 2013 before he figured out how to successfully incorporate it into his act. Wow. Variety caught up with Robert Smigel. They gave Robert quite the wax job on Adam Sandler's Leo. But I was more interested in the part about Triumph. And would Triumph ever run for office? Smigel said, I've thought about doing it, believe it or not. Not run for president, but some office and just doing the entire campaign as Triumph. But part of it is campaign finance laws are really strange and strict because I would want to chronicle it. And there are certain rules about how cameras can't be following you unless they're a separate documentary crew. And I'd only want to do it if I could do it in a humorous way. I love covering the election as Triumph for Hulu in 2016, and it was one of the most well-received things I ever did in my career. They asked Smigel, was there any sketch that you loved that you couldn't get on the air at SNL? Smigel said, actually, there was one that Dana Carvey and I released. Bob Odenkirk had written about it in his autobiography and talked about it on a show as the funniest sketch that never aired. There's a host talking about early footage of Charlie Chaplin. Dana Carvey plays Chaplin, and we see outtakes where he's basically unrecognizable and not funny at all. Then this waiter character comes out, and he's dressed like Chaplin. Take after take, you see Chaplin slowly steal every part of his persona to the point where the guy ends up serving him in long underwear. We did it at dress rehearsal, and it never made it to air, but we put it online. The Press Enterprise caught up with Howie Mandel. He told a story about being in the casino and said there was a lady playing a slot machine, very focused on the machine, so I thought it'd be funny to sneak up behind her. Just before she pressed the button, I said in her ear, "Deal or no deal." She never turned her head. She just elbowed me in the chest, knocked the wind in, and said, "Get away from me." She didn't know who I was. Now I like to approach them from the front. Howie says he has a slot machine version of Deal or No Deal in his LA office, but he says he's not much of a gambler. He added if he were on Deal or No Deal, he'd take the first offer and go home. All right, I got a couple more of those end-of-the-year lists for you. This from Decider, the 10 best stand-up comedy specials of 2023. I'll have mine for you later this week. I wanted to watch Ricky Gervais, and, today's December 26th. No, I didn't tape this on Christmas Day. I actually recorded this on Friday. So at this time, I haven't seen Gervais nor Goleman yet, but looking forward to it. And hopefully in the real world, I've watched both by now, but we'll get to that later in the week. These lists are hard. Decider wrote, when the calendar year finally ends, we'll have seen several hundred new stand-up comedy specials in 2023, at least 700 counting hours and half hours. They have a list of 57 that they've reviewed. That's what I'm saying. I know sometimes I sound crazy here when I'm like, I haven't watched that one. I love doing the podcast, but sometimes I don't want to watch comedy. All right, this is Sean McCarthy who made this list. He knows what he's talking about. Let's see who he liked here. He is number 10, Greg Warren's The Salesman. I started to watch that one, and I felt like they had added artificial laughter to it. I do this for a living, and it just didn't sound right to me, and that made me go, I'm out. McCarthy writes, if you close your eyes, you might just imagine hearing what almost sounds like Mitch Hedberg, if only he could do corporate gigs. Yeah, I don't know if I can roll with that one. Number 9, Ralph Barbosa's Cowabunga. I have that on my list, pretty low, but okay. 8, My Name is Monique on Netflix. That one didn't grab me. 7, Jim Gaffigan's Dark Pale. I'll have a lot of great things to say about Jim later in the week. This particular special did not make my end-of-the-year list. 6, Joe Perez' Slow and Steady. I will comment on that when I do my list. Number 5, Gary Gulman's Born on Third Base. Tied with Maria Bamford's Local Act. Why is there a tie? 4, Breviglia, The Old Man on the Pool. As I've said, I think you'll like it, and I'm a comedy snob. 3, Wanda Sykes, I'm an Entertainer. I didn't feel that special at all. 2, Beth Stelling, If You Didn't Like Me Then. I didn't feel that special at all, but I see that at a lot of people's lists up top. Wow, he has Mark Maron's From Bleak to Dark at number 1. I've been on a Maron kick, and I don't even have this on my list. Not my favorite Maron special at all. Wow, all right, we'll agree to disagree. Cracked wrote the 10 comedy voices that mattered most in 2023. 10, Sabrina Breyer. Johnny Mac goes, who? And they write, your annoying roommate is slaying on TikTok, proclaimed the New York Times. That's Breyer, whose TikTok following has nearly doubled since our national newspaper of record wrote about her in the spring. Breyer's secret is her willingness to be hateable and yet relatable. 9, Hassan Minhaj, right? We know about his little kerfluffle with the New Yorker writing the expose on his stories not being all that true. 8, Diane Morgan from Kunk on Earth. Good call. Did you watch Kunk on Earth yet? That was probably my favorite thing of the entire year. 7, Pedro Pascal. What? In addition to killing it on HBO's The Last of Us, Pascal also became the unexpected MVP of Saturday Night Live. I don't know about that, guys. Really? All right, move on. 6, Fran Drescher. Okay, yep, she was involved with the strikes. Fine. 5, John Mulaney. Crack writes, if you're getting tired of Mulaney, it's only because the story has been everywhere in the past year. Baby J drew deserved comparisons to Richard Pryor's Live on the Sunset Strip for its ability to generate huge laughs while telling harrowing stories of drug addiction. I never thought about that at all. I guess that's not a ridiculous comparison. 4, George Santos. Crack, you're trying too hard. 3, Matt Rife. Well discussed on this podcast. 2, Greta Gerwig. Cracked writes, let's shower Gerwig with her well-deserved flowers. Barbie obliterated box office records, etc., etc. And they have number 1, Elon Musk. No one wanted to be funny in 2023 more than Musk. In fact, it's what he always wanted. Paste Magazine, the 10 best comedians of 2023. They write, deciding who were the best comedians of 23 is admittedly a really difficult task. By what metric? What counts as a comedian? Always a good question. Let's see who they have. Nate Bargatze, well discussed. Ayo Edebiri. She had a really good season on The Bear. Great show. Okay. Joe Firestone, interesting pick. With the release of her debut novel, Murder on Sex Island, the year brought an exciting new venture for Joe Firestone and a clever marketing tactic. Firestone released each chapter to audiences for free via audio streamers, building intrigue and momentum with listeners in order to boost book sales. Robbie Hoffman. Paste writes, what makes this comedian so special is her candor, mixed with her sincere curiosity and compassion. You'll find her on Netflix's Verified Stand-Up. Paste continuing to throw deep. Next up, Mecky Leaper. They write, whether you thought jury duty was a stroke of genius or an unethical project in the relentless pursuit of laughs, you have to admit it was a phenomenon. Leaper wrote for jury duty and stars as naive juror Noah. Okay, cool. Good pick. Mae Martin. I just don't get it. Aparna Nancherla. Good to see her back. I've been a fan of hers for several years. Paste writes, for the nervous among us, Aparna Nancherla sings your tune quietly in the back. Actually, she wouldn't be caught singing out loud at all. Instead, you can find the anxiety-ridden expert in deadpan delivery on back shelves everywhere with the publication of her debut memoir, Unreliable Narrator, Me, Myself, and Imposter Syndrome. Sarah Sherman. I love Sarah, and I'm glad everybody's getting to know her through Saturday Night Live. She crushes every time she's on. She's fantastic. You know, they could build a pretty good cast. They've got Sarah, Bowen Yang, who hopefully sticks around for a couple more years. He crushes every time as well. Jost and Che, just leave them at the desk for another 10 years. But yeah, Sarah's fantastic. And I scrolled down by 2. They do have Bowen Yang on the list. Okay, we're on the same page there. But before Bowen Yang, they have Jess Tom. Pace is a big fan of Jess's show, Less Lonely. Less Lonely digs into love at the end of the world, change, and a lot of weird sex. And that's your comedy news for today. Now, tomorrow, we're promoting the Top 11 podcast. That's a new podcast where every week you'll get the top 11 things on a single topic. The topic can be anything. It could be album covers, movie moments, quirky hobbies. You'll find the top 11 wherever you get your podcast. So as part of promoting the top 11 tomorrow, I will give you my list of the top 11 most powerful comedians of 2023. See you tomorrow.